that was silly, ridiculous, a waste of time. They didn't want. That's why they were so successful. That's why they got away.
I made a living in very
Welcome to Dianne Andrews in Black and White, and I'm your host, Dianne Andrews. Thanks for watching us in the 5 million homes we're in, 2 million in Houston, Texas, and around Houston, 3 million in Louisiana and Mississippi. If I say float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, I think everyone remembers the man who said this, the greatest of all times. Today we're going to do an interview with Barbara Porche Ali, who says she is the mother of his 10th child and was one of his former wives. Come on back to Dianne Andrews and hear this interesting story of Barbara's life with Muhammed Ali. Welcome back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Thanks for joining us on this very interesting show. I mentioned Barbara Porche Ali in the beginning, the former wife of Muhammad Ali, and she has, per her, his 10th child. Thank you for being here with us, Barbara. You are from Louisiana, Houma. So am I. Now, we had talked briefly, and you told me that you met Mr. Ali the first time in New York.
Yes.
And how that happened was you were here visiting for a summer at almost 16 years old, right. And your aunt knew a photographer who knew Mr. Ali.
That's correct.
Photographer Lloyd.
Lloyd Wells.
Lloyd Wells. Is Mr. Wells still with us, or has he gone on? Tell me how, your mother's very religious. Right. She sent you to Houston to visit with your aunt.
That's correct.
And your aunt thought enough of this photographer, Mr. Lloyd, to allow you to go to New York with him.
Yes.
To meet Mr. Ali.
Yes.
Okay. How long did that take her to make the decision for you to go with the photographer?
Well, she had lived here practically all her life, and he was a neighbor, and so they knew each other very well.
So she trusted him.
She trusted him.
And she knew who Muhammad. Well, he was Cassius Clay.
He was Cassius
at the time
Clay.
You met him.
Yes.
And had he won that first heavyweight championship?
I don't think
yet?
he had.
He had not won that. How did you feel? You were being asked to meet him for what reason? Was he taking you to take pictures of you with him? What was it for? Was there a reason, a purpose?
Well, he said he wanted to take me to meet Muhammad Ali. And I knew Muhammad Ali.
Well, Cassius Clay. He took you to meet Cassius Clay.
Yes, and I knew Cassius Clay.
You knew of him?
I knew of him, yes.
So you're excited because he's 6'3", Mr. Ali was, and he was a very attractive man, but you were a teenager.
Yes.
So what did you think of going there? How did you feel?
Well, I didn't put a lot of stock in the fact I'm going to meet Muhammad Ali. My main thing was
Cassius Clay.
Cassius Clay.
Yeah.
That I was going to be on a plane for the first time in my life.
You were afraid?
I was a bit afraid, yes.
Now,
I was excited and afraid.
Was he Mr. Ali's photographer? Is that why he took pictures of Cassius Clay?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm saying Ali.
Yes.
So when you all got to New York, you were in a hotel. Tell me what happened.
Oh my God. Lloyd checked in and brought me up to the room, and he said that he was going to bring Cassius, to see me. And I said, okay.
And this was the early 1960s?
Yes.
Had he been married to Sonia? He married legally, by the government legally, 4 wives. And you were married later by Elijah Muhammed spiritually.
Right.
At the Nation of Islam in a spiritual ceremony.
Right.
But you consider yourself a wife?
I did.
Okay. Do you still consider yourself a former wife?
I do.
Okay. So you met him, and you had a room alone? Was your room alone?
It was a huge room. It was more a suite.
Okay.
And I went up to the room and started putting my few things up. And later on, I was laying across the bed when Lloyd came back with Muhammad.
We can't, okay, we're going to call him Muhammad Ali for the purpose of the show.
Yes,
He's so known as Muhammad Ali,
right.
but he was still Cassius Clay until 1960, during the draft dodger. Right before that, he became Muhammad Ali. 65, 66,
yes,
something like
yes.
that, I think I read.
Yes.
And you met Malcolm X with him that day also, didn't you? Did you meet any other dignitaries or famous people that we may know then?
No, it was just Malcolm X.
Had you ever heard of the Nation of Islam?
Yes, I had heard of it.
And your mother was a Pentecostal, is that correct?
Yes.
So she was definitely against
Oh, yes.
that religion and Allah.
Oh, yes. My father was pastor of the
Oh,
church.
wow.
And matter of fact, we built the church.
So you were definitely going against what your mother would have liked at the time. So she was not told about this at all.
No, my aunt said she would agree to it, but not to tell my mother.
How long did it take before she found out you were dating Cassius Clay?
Well, that was 63, and the right beginning of 64, he came to Houma.
Okay. So you all got along, you went well. You, Kalia, his formerly Belinda, has written something that calls him a sex addict. And it was in the magazines last year that you had sex tapes that you were trying to sell for $100,000. And I understand that's not true, but it was spread all over the country.
Yes.
Would you consider him a sex addict? Or?
No, I didn't consider him a sex addict. You know, as I got to know him better and time passed, you know, there were incidents where, you know, things were being done, but tried to be secretly from me, you know, but I didn't consider him a sex addict. I was young, I didn't know anything about it. I just know that he loved me.
And you all had foreplay that night, but no sexual activity as the normal sexual activity. How long, and he came to Houma, you're telling us a year later, so were you seeing each other after the New York meeting? How often did you see each other, and how did you see him? Did he come to Houston? He couldn't come to Louisiana.
He moved to Houston.
He moved because of you, or he was moving there for training? Do you know?
I don't know.
Had he been married to Sonia, the first wife at this time?
No, I met him in 63.
And they didn't marry yet? They were not married?
No.
So did he ask you to marry you in a American ceremony, a legal, what we consider in America legal, and you would not change to the Nation of Islam religion, the Muslim religion?
Yes, well, he was contemplating, you know, the Muslim religion, and he asked me would I go to the mosque and learn about it and everything. I said I would, but, you know, I don't think that was something that would be allowed because of my upbringing, you know, so.
Do you regret that today, that you did not change to the Muslim religion, the Nation of Islam, with him?
No, my belief's still the same. You know, that's what I was reared in, and that's what I believe in, you know. But after I told him that I wouldn't, he came down and met my parents, you know, and he just fell right in like he was, you know, family.
Part of the family.
Right.
So your mother began to like him. It didn't matter he was a Muslim. He was Cassius Clay, and later heavyweight champion of the world. He won 3 heavyweight championships of the world and was such an excellent, great boxer. And let's talk about the draft dodging in the middle, I think that was the middle 60s, right? That
67.
67. They called him a draft evader. They fined him $10,000. I think they put him in jail for a little while. Did he ever go? He was supposed to go to jail, but never went.
That was the sentence, 5 years and $10,000 fine, but he appealed it.
Did he ever go down like one night to jail or something?
Never.
So they never handcuffed him, never took him down. And you were with him then?
I was right there.
And from what you told me, he bought a van when he couldn't fight for it. He was on a suspension from fighting for so many years, I think.
For 3 years.
3 years. And he bought a van.
Mobile home.
Mobile home.
And like a motorhome, yeah.
A motorhome.
Yeah.
And you were with him a lot of times in this motorhome as you all traveled around the country. He went to colleges doing motivational speaking. That's how he made his money.
That's right. $1,500 each.
Back then?
Yes.
That was a lot of money back then.
$1,500 for every time you speak.
Who thought of that? He was just an ingenious person who said, okay, I can't box right now, but I've got to make money.
Yeah, well, they were discussing it. You know, that was a
Who was his agent? Do you remember his agent back then?
I just know his lawyers and
his lawyers.
Trainers and photographers and stuff like that.
Did you live with him in this mobile home?
We stayed in a motorhome.
So, motorhome. Would you call then yourself a common law? I know in Texas and some other states, I think it's 6 months. In Louisiana also, I think. If you live with someone and project yourself as their wife, you're common law married. Did you ever consider yourself as a common law wife to Muhammad Ali?
No, I didn't consider myself a common law wife. I remember one time we were in New Orleans and we were standing in the back of the car, we were talking, and some people, and I'd never heard Ali do this because he autographs for everybody. And a young man came up to get his autograph and he said, "Don't you see I'm talking to my wife?" You know.
So he presented you as his
Yes.
wife. You all had the ceremony by then.
Yes.
By 67, you had and Elijah Muhammed, the person, I don't think he was the complete founder of the Nation of Islam, but he was the one who built it up
Yes.
in America. So he married you all
Yes, he did.
in a spiritual ceremony. Was anyone there at that ceremony besides you?
Oh, there were some sisters in the mosque and two of his closest friends.
Now, when he legally married Sonia, was right around that time, right? That was his first legal wife.
Right.
How did you feel? How did that had to be heartbreaking?
Well, I felt broken, and it, you know, it really did a lot to me.
Right.
You know, and he was explaining, you know, the same situation. He wanted her to become, you know, Muslim, and you know, she refused, and
She never did, I don't think.
She never did,
And they
no.
didn't have children. I think
No,
they were
they
only
did not.
married two or 3 years.
Yes.
But he legally married her without having that change to Islam. Did you wonder why didn't he marry me without having the change to Islam?
No, I guess when you're young, you don't think of all that. All you know is what he tell you, and that he
Right.
loved me, and you know that was something I should have, you know, but it did.
Did you all ever
bother.
discuss polygamy, being married to two women at the same time, or and a de facto polygamy? You know, polygamy is illegal in America, but there's something called de facto polygamy, where it's a religious, and it's mostly the Muslim custom that you can have multiple wives, and it's a religious.
No, never the word polygamy. No.
No common law. You just think I'm his wife.
That's
As he
right.
presents me as his wife.
That's right.
We're going to come on back to this interesting story and talk a little bit more about Barbara Porche Ali, and you'll find out that she was related to one of his legal wives, American legal wives. Come on back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Welcome back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. You're going to hear some stories about now Muhammad Ali that you've never heard before, and some you may have read. Tell me about the African fight when he was married to Kalia. You were on the list to go to the fight, and Veronica Porche Ali, who ended up being your cousin, who is also from Louisiana, went to the fight. Tell us a little bit about that, and then some other stories with Sidney Poitier.
Well, I got my passport. I was ready to go. And like I said before, a lot of them didn't like to see me coming because they know Ali would give me his undivided attention.
When you say them, you mean his
handlers,
handlers, they call
yes,
them? Yeah.
Yes. And so somehow they took me off the list. So I didn't get to go to Kinshasa.
And that was before the days of the cell phone and everything, so you
Yes.
couldn't get to him.
Yes, couldn't get to him. And it was there that the incident happened between Veronica and Kalila.
Now, what exactly happened? Did you hear happen? Is it the same thing we heard happened?
Well, what I understand was that he was holding out Veronica as his wife. And
While he was legally married
to Kalila.
Kalila, but he had not married legally Veronica yet.
No.
Okay.
He was telling everybody that was his wife. And when Kalila got there, it was not good at all.
Was there a fight? Did they have a physical
well,
fight?
not physical, but she left and came back to the States.
Did he tell her to get out, you think, or
I
don't know?
don't know. No.
How did that make you feel back at the time when you heard that?
Well, I was hurt first that I was taken off the list, but I was kind of glad that I wasn't there with what was going on.
Yeah, it would have been a
you
complete
know.
disaster.
Yes, so it worked out pretty good.
Now, you knew or found out Veronica Porche was your cousin, who he married after Kalia. So tell us a story about in California, the two of you all in the house with Sidney Poitier, something that the audience has probably never heard before.
Well, it was like I was the only one. You know, we went upstairs, he showed me
You came with
around.
him? Did you come with Mr. Ali?
No, I went visit him.
Oh.
Yes, and he was waiting for me at the house. And
At Mr. Portier's house, the actor.
no, he was at Sidney was at Ali's house.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sitting there. He lived on the stand around the corner from Ali.
Okay.
And when I got there, Sidney wanted to know who I was, and that's when Ali said that was my wife, and he know that look that Sidney gives. Well, who is there? And he said, that's my wife.
And that was Veronica
And that was
Porche Ali.
Veronica Porche, yes.
Did you find out then you all were cousins? How did you determine you all were related?
It was an incident where we were at a fight to be held. We were in the hotel. Veronica's mother, they were talking, and that's my name and all of that. And then she started, how they say, well, y'all are cousins. Your mother this or something, and all the way down the line. And I said, oh, really? And so I left it like that. My mother wasn't here for me to validate it.
Oh, she had gone on by then?
Yes, she had gone. So, I just left it like that. I never said anything else about it.
So that day at the house when Mr. Portier, did he just dropped and say, oh, okay, they're both his wives?
Yeah.
He didn't say anything else?
Sidney left, and then Ali started showing me around. He showed me the grounds, and we went upstairs.
Now, he and Veronica were legally married, and she lived in that house?
Yes.
In Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles.
And you stayed in that house that night?
Yes.
With them?
Yes.
And was that an often occurrence that you would stay and Veronica said nothing?
No.
Was she a Muslim by then?
Clear. No.
She was not a Muslim?
Yeah, Muhammad always made it clear who I was, through all of everything from 1963 through 94.
You never had any dealings with Khalil, the former Belinda. Did you ever have dealings with her?
Oh, yes. Ali had sent for me, and when I got there, Khalil wouldn't let me in.
At their home? That home is the second wife?
Yes.
Yeah.
She instructed the security to rough me up.
To rough you up?
Yes. And they did.
They did?
Yes. Ali didn't know anything about it.
What did they do?
They wouldn't let Ali know I was there.
What did they physically do to you? Did you have to go to the hospital?
When I was pretty banged up a little bit, but I left and I went on and came back to Houston. Then I filed charges.
Against her?
Against her.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so after I filed charges against her, the attorney was telling me you have to, it's like the guards are employed by Muhammad, so you have to follow on Ali too. So I didn't want to do that because I know Ali didn't know anything about it, what they had done.
Well, so when you arrived at the airport, he didn't send a driver for you? You had to get a cab or someone to bring you to the house?
Yeah, I think I had a car that he knew what time I was getting in and the whole works. And when I got there, they had that planned out.
So she was different than Veronica. Veronica let you stay in the house with her and him, but she was not going for it. You never were around her with him too much. Is that correct?
I traveled with Ali for almost 3 years.
Was she there too?
No, she was not there, no.
Do you think there were other women also, or do you know?
Ali loved women.
Pretty women. All you all were very beautiful women, yeah.
So there were instances where we were traveling. There was one particular incident where we were traveling, and I think we were going to Syracuse University for him to speak. And there was a car by the side of the road had stopped. And from the lights, you can see they were female. So Ali told him stop the bus, and he got out to go, and I was, young and fussing. I said, you better not bring him on this bus, because I knew how he was.
With women, right?
Yes. So he kind of like had both of my hand in his one hand, to keep me from, hitting him, and they came back on the bus. And
he didn't care what you said, he brought them anyway.
He brought them on the bus. He said, he's just trying to help them. You want me to help people, won't you? You know how he was. And I didn't say anything else when we got to the hotel.
Were these teenagers or young women?
They were young women. And I didn't know about a hotel room, that door is adjacent to another room.
When you have a suite kind of.
When you have a suite. And so I was just in the room, and I fumbled with the door, and I opened it, and Ali was engaging with one of the young
Engaging
ladies.
in sex with one of them?
Yes. And
with you in the next room?
Yes, and I closed the door, and he ran behind me, to tell me something or whatever. There's nothing he could have told me because I had already seen,
Right.
what happened. And so I started less travels with him
Yeah.
after a while because, that hurt.
Yes.
But the women, there was always women around.
And maybe that's what the wife meant. That's kind of, I mean, you're in the other room and he's engaging in sex with a woman he just met. If you were a pretty woman, you were in danger with, not that he, not rape, but most women will, he was a good looking, handsome man. He was heavyweight champion of the world. He was rich, he was famous, he was intelligent, and probably a lot of women threw themselves on him also. Did you see that much?
Well, I think it was the photographer that always set things up.
Really?
Yes, because...
Like he did with you?
Yes, same thing. Because a lot of times before a big fight, he roamed the area and he'd see pretty girls around the pool and everything. And he'd tell them, you want to meet Muhammad Ali and blah, 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 and who he is. And, and they go for it. And so after the fight, they have a big party.
Uh-huh.
Where all of the girls...
Like sex parties?
Yes, well, all the girls go to that room thinking Ali's going to be there,
Uh-huh.
And he would say, if you want to show me what you can do, before I let you meet Ali.
Oh, so he tested these
Yes.
women out.
Yes.
Talking about sexual harassment.
Yes.
What that's not even, I don't know what harassment's the workplace, but so they were terrible enough or wanting to meet Ali badly enough that they would have sex with the photographer or whoever it took to get them to Ali.
To get to Ali, yes.
That is an amazing story. And then what would he do? Pick out who he thought was the prettiest, the best in whatever categories these were, and take them into Ali's room later?
Well, Ali was totally against that.
Oh, okay.
He even fired Lloyd Wells for one time I opened the door where this was going on, and Ali found out that I had opened the door and found out what was going on. He let Lloyd go. He was totally against it.
That was totally wrong.
Because it was Lloyd and all the rest of the hanger-ons that were in the parties.
Did you find a lot of people that shouldn't be trusted in his entourage, the handlers?
Oh, yes.
And I think most famous people have that problem. Who do you trust? How do you know who really cares about you as a person or just about your money and your fame?
Oh, yes, there were a lot of hanger-ons.
Now tell me about your daughter. What year, who was Ali married to? Your daughter's 36 years old, recently 36. And you had a DNA done in 1994, which is inconclusive. And I think one of the wives wanted it done, was that correct?
Oh, that was Lonnie.
That's the last wife
That's the
who
last.
stayed with him 30 years. And she knew him since she was a young girl too, I think in her teenage, from what I gathered.
Yes.
So that was all she needed to prove to him that this was not his daughter. Did he ever
Ali-
think it wasn't his daughter?
No, Ali was 100% with my daughter. Even in middle school, he would go by and pick her up.
That was before Lonnie, or was that?
That was before Lonnie. Go by and pick her up from school, and all the kids would come around and know it was Ali. And one day she said, I want to go to Showbiz Pizza. He didn't know what that was. We were on our way to Galveston. So he stopped the car and said, let's go to Showbiz Pizza, to take her.
So he drove himself here, or he had a driver?
No,
at
he
all
had a
times?
driver.
Yeah.
Reggie was his driver. And so went to Showbiz Pizza. And, I have tons of pictures, with her and him. And, he said, I'm her father. This is my child.
What did that do to her after Lonnie stopped the communication when she married him between them?
It was devastating for her. I mean, one time Ali was here, and we went to what was called then Hotel America, and Lonnie was there, and she said, she can't come upstairs. Then Ali said, well, you stay down, because she's going upstairs, and that was in '95. She tried to control him, but when Ali can speak for himself, he spoke up for himself.
Was he still financially aiding her at that time, your daughter?
Oh, yes.
And you?
Oh, yes.
And you had a business at one time as a hairdresser, and you did marry another man, and he helped you in that business, right?
Oh, yes. He paid a 5-year lease on the beauty salon. But I was really never there because I was always traveling with him,
But after Lonnie, that stopped?
Oh, yes.
The communication with the daughter
Well,
stopped,
then
and
he got
finances
sick.
stopped.
He got sick.
So she controlled.
So she controlled everything then. So you know, the last time I saw him was in Dallas. He was at an autograph signing.
Now, did he have a will that your daughter, Kirsty, would be his 10th child?
Mm-hmm.
Which you're saying it is. DNA hadn't proved it, and Lonnie is not saying that's his child. Is that correct?
No.
As far as the will. Did the will leave the other 9 children monies and your daughter nothing, or how did it work?
Well, she and Muhammed Ali Jr. are the best of friends, and Jr. is still cutting grass.
Cutting grass as a profession?
As a profession. He doesn't have any money.
He didn't have a will, Muhammad Ali, because of his illness, the Parkinson's, you think?
I don't know what it was, but like I said, Muhammad Ali Jr. is the only one that we communicate with. And so far, he hasn't gotten anything at all, and that's his blood son.
Thank you very much, Hibernia Wealth Management in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for sponsoring this episode of Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Join Dianne Andrews in Black and White and Promoting Success Seminars on April 28, 2018 for a leadership and networking forum in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Learn more at www.dianneandrewssite.net. Welcome back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. And during the break, we were just talking about, we wanted to emphasize that the sex tape story is not true. She was not trying to sell sex tapes of her and Muhammad Ali or sex parties for $100,000. But I understand that you're writing a book, Barbara, and tell me about the book.
Well, the book is about Muhammad and me.
Mm-hmm. What's the name? Me and Ali, the myth, the martyr, the man.
The man, yes.
Nice name.
Yes.
Why did you call him a martyr?
Because he was.
In what way?
In many ways. He was respected, he was firm, he had his own mind. I mean, anything you say to him. I remember one time we were in New Orleans going to Homer. He went to speak at my sister's school in Southdown High School. And on our way...
She was principal.
She was principal, yes. And on our way, he was writing and what he's going to say and about the blacks and the whites. And I said, Ali, you're not going to say that, huh? He said, oh, you don't want me to say it?
Was this an integrated school at the time?
It was an integrated school, but you know, Ali had that thing about the white this and blacks that. And that wasn't, I didn't feel it was a time to do that. He said, okay, I'll erase it. And when we got to the school, he said exactly what he wanted to say. And they cheered him, they loved him.
Yeah.
So he was right there again.
People adored him from what you saw, didn't you?
Oh, yes, they loved him. And he never turned anybody down.
The greatest love of your life. As you told him, you were the greatest of all time, right? I bet you're the only woman who ever told him that. How did you even tell him that? And then we're going to close this out.
Well, he came to my school looking for me. I told him I was at school. And he came to the school, and everybody was around, Muhammad Ali. And he looked over and he saw me up against the window. He said, don't you know I'm the greatest of all times? And I said, I'm the greatest of all time. My friends didn't know I knew him already. You know, so that's how that went. Yeah.
You were, quote, as cocky as he was on that statement. Thanks very much, Barbara, for being here. Nice meeting you, and good luck to you and your daughter.
Thank you so
See you
much.
next week on Dianne Andrews in Black and White.
That's why they were so successful. That's why they got away.
I made a living in very dangerous.
Dianne Andrews in Black and White.